Does truth have a personality? And what could the ultimate destinations of human consciousness be? Hello everyone, welcome to another episode. The inspiration behind these lectures is an ability, an evolutionary opportunity to respond consciously to the world's circumstances. In this episode, does truth have a personality? It's as if like one person is trying to see what truth could be, and then how much it has a relationship with the idea of a person, or what the persona is, which is a subjective mask over which a physiological creature is wearing. Pretty much it's like, okay, I'll just get into it. We can start from two different perspectives. This is one of those talks which it can have two starting points. I guess I'll bring out the notepad. So if the viewers can look at the screen. I'm going to attempt to draw my coughs. No, I'm kidding. I feel this is going to be an interesting episode. First moment of resolve to organize the position of, let's say, the lift off of attention. Okay, the software is tripping. This is ridiculous. Why is it doing this? I don't know if the viewers are seeing this, but I updated the software and it's freaking out. Okay, I don't know what to do. It looks like this, guys, for some reason. Oh man, I think I have to reset the stream for this to work. Okay. Okay, for some reason it just looks like this, which means I gotta hold it this way. This is hilarious. Okay, whatever. Okay, whatever. I won't draw it, guys. I'll just dive into the episode. The main idea is to wonder about truth and to wonder about the idea of truth implies and its relationship to, let's say, the human experience. So I guess to open up the sentence, does truth have a personality? Does truth have a personality? We come and look at what the idea of truth means. Truth, in the simplest way, can be said to be what is here before anything else is here. Truth points to the origin, whatever. Like if you want to get to the truth of a world, it's the origin of the world, the nature of the origin. If we want to get to the truth of what the human being is, it's like we gotta wonder about what sort of seed was planted in the soil, right? What sort of original force allowed evolution to occur. You know, the remarkable thing of being a human being, like metaphorically, would be as if, like, imagine flowers, different flowers in a garden suddenly all realize they're being flowers. On some level, their purpose is to be who they are, but the additional dimension of knowing each other, in some sense, it opens up a greater horizon. You see, it's not just that human beings are creatures and the meaning of life is for this creature to just live, right? The idea is, what is the inspiration that is moving anything in the moment? If we start from that perspective, something fascinating can happen, right? You see, what is the mind? The mind is the receiver of space and then the interpreter of what it receives in the space. The act of meaning, it's like what something means and what something is are like two different dimensions of value. What something is a physical existential dimension of value. What something means is like how consciousness is engaged. Pretty much what the meaning of life is what is consciousness looking at. So let's say truth is another way of saying the original nature of reality. In Vedic thought, yoga, the whole mystical abode of Vedanta. In yoga, Their approach was in some sense that every human being, they had the way they were, let's say, behaving as a sort of identity, but they also had a true nature. And the ancient mystics of long ago, they spoke a hidden language, a hidden silent language that nowadays is forgotten. They spoke a hidden language of their eyes. Right, so it was as if in one way we're looking at it, okay, this is a good human being, this is a bad human being, this human being's like that human being's like the other way, right? And the ancient yogis would look at life and they would realize that everything that has shape also has an energetic position where its nature emanates. So what that means is when we see somebody be violent, it's because something in that moment of their intelligence, in their nature, has allowed violence, you know? I'm trying to say that the human being is a creature that is simulating abstract realities to be capable of having a contrast of what reality is. Like, it's this bizarre situation where if we want to accept reality, we have to accept the unreal simultaneously. It's like the idea of good and bad, okay? Good and evil. If there was only a good world, there would be no need for the concept of good. If there was only an evil world, there would be no need for the word evil. Right? These concepts arise as being sort of geometric abstract principles of how perception is kept. And what it is that through abstract movement within our mind, we animate the physical, existential body in front of our eyes. Like, what I'm trying to say is, if poetically the soul was seen as 100% unknown, the mind was seen as, let's say, 50% known, 50% unknown, and the body was seen as 100% known, it would be kind of wondering, how is an unknown user of life using inner simulations of what the world is to move outer simulations? And now this creature, this unknown intelligent witness, let's say, or as Papaji would say it very elegantly, he would say, you are the unchanging awareness where all activity takes place. Imagine that unchanging awareness that is witnessing all activity happening at once. Right? Imagine that. Imagine your soul is an unknown user of life, and the soul is actually moving, just like how somebody in a giant robot can like move that giant robot, right? Similarly, it would be like the unknown soul is moving the mind in an unknown way. The mind is moving, but because it's being moved in an unknown way, all that it's left to separate itself from the unknown is knowledge. And something, guys, I think I should say, I'd appreciate if anybody who is listening to this talk to share this link, I don't know, somewhere. What I'm trying to say is that in order to see if truth has a personality, we have to wonder about the dimensions that we experience reality. We open our eyes in the morning and we find our biological existence in what the ancients would call the conscious waking state. That means when we open our eyes in the morning, we have logged back into. It's like the unknown mover of free will is logging back into the video game of life. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that truth is more like how a force is being, rather than a sort of character in a story attaining something. You see, it's kind of like the human being's like, what am I? Right? And it's like, okay, I'm a self in a world. Then it's asking itself, how am I a self in a world? And so the attention, everything, all acts, instances, or open applications of knowledge, they all close. And the human being reaches a point where you get to feel the unknown earth. So the unknown earth is beyond the language threshold. In other words, it's kind of like saying that the human being is experiencing existence non-physically, but it's existing experientially physically. So existence is being experience is being existence, experience attributes to the mind is a simultaneous point of the access of the free will. So what I'm trying to say pretty much is that it's like we look for a truth based on how far our eyes have opened. Now, the question of does truth have a personality is another way of saying, in this massive changing cosmos, how significant is it that if there was something moving everything, or if the universe was alive, just like the cells in our body are alive, imagine our red blood cells suddenly got some sort of personified free will, and the red blood cells were like, we are moving ourselves, not realizing it's the space of the whole body. To be a physical creature in a world, it's poetically, if you were living in ancient India, you have manifested as the body of God. But to communicate and to move, right, to have, in some sense, the soul's command, allow the inner worlds. Like, let me tell you guys something. If we were robots, if we had a robotic consideration of truth, it would be like the perfect program. Okay? But because we're not robots, what is not making us a program is the fact that there are unknown movements in the realm. That means if somebody could, let's say you had 2 minutes to reset the value system of the earth. I'm thinking a possible way would be that everything, pretty much 2 major schools of thought of unknownism and knownism, will dictate the future. This is the best, I would say this is the coolest way to reset the educational system. It's as if there is an education with, let me say it this way, it's as if the human species has a new definition of what it means to be human. And to be a human being, aside from having a biological membership, aside from having an ideological membership, which is your name, that the human being's potential constituted with how it, as an energy or energetic pattern of its DNA, respond to the dimensions of the realm. On some level, we are here because there's something to do. We are embodied because the body must move. We are conscious, I understand the glory of, okay, the species is not going to go extinct. Heroes are going to save the species from extinction. But that's the agenda of the body. But what is the agenda of the mind? That means imagine intelligence is divided into three agendas. Imagine three dimensions are trying to evolve at the same time and they are racing. Let's say in the human experience, there is a biological agenda. The biological agenda is stay human as long as possible. Now let's say there's a psychological or mental agenda. There's a mind agenda. Okay, there's an agenda for the mind. Just like our bodies are here to survive, there's a reason we are conscious. And I have thought about this reason. I have thought about what sort of vision the educational systems in 2022 are painting, and I realized that the greatest education on this planet is for 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere to realize that we have from the beginning of time been a traveler of worlds. We have been explorers of states. We are like, what humanity is in an exoteric surface dimension is like, okay, bunch of creatures doing the best they can, but be in the esoteric dimensions of reality, it's kind of like the only way to see the roots of the tree is to become the tree that knows already its roots are there. The salvation of humanity is like the destiny of how 8 billion bodies surviving in the world led to psychological frameworks. Do you see how remarkable our species is? Let me tell you, language from one lens can be seen as a simulation, but it can also be seen as a hive mind. Like people don't realize that just like bees build a beehive, the human species started symbolically with sound and symbols, like categorize everything. Right? It's as if we don't realize, like, imagine there's this warrior who's just learned how to fight, and this warrior goes on a battlefield where millions of great warriors had already fought before. So it's as if just by being in the space, one feels the ancient journey of Earth, you know? To ask the question, does truth have a personality, is another way of saying for how long will the idea of the human being be the prime administrator of the destiny of human intelligence? Like, we are a power right now. We are a disorganized biological power. Right? Everything in this reality is energy. Sure, on some level, you know, our neighbors are, you know, people we don't know, but at the same time, energetically, like if the person realized they're an energetic being and they realize the world is made up of energy, it's another way of saying consciousness is the essence of energy. So something in nature, it was as if some force hidden in the periodic table, you know, animated to a point to doubt itself. For me, one of the genius things that our species has done from the perspective of an evolutionary animal was to doubt a path it took. You know, because a lot of reality has been made with trust. The more we go back in human civilization, what do we find? We find our ancestors had to trust in something to live. Everybody is wondering about the world story and considering how much of our experience is the salvation of the future. Like, I think about it right now, my actions, like I could look at my ancestors and they could look at me talking about this stuff and be like, I could see errors in the past, but I can also see victories in the future. The mystical experiences arises when a person realizes the present poetically or through New Agean terms. How would I say it? Think of it this way: the body is a physical limited room. The mind is a non-physical limitless room. So think of it this way: our minds already have access to an infinite quality of nature. The brain cannot just only copy paste like reality. It can also speed up how many times it copy pastes reality in a moment. We are human beings. We are on some level objects that are real objects that are moving through, abstract subjects, a way, let's say the scholars of the realm can look at the world is that, okay, truth has to be the most real event. That means imagine you're someone right now listening to me and you have attempted in this lifetime as a being, as an individual, to wonder about truth, and you have wondered about ultimate truth. To just consider this for a moment. What is the ultimate truth? What is the ultimate destination to human consciousness? What is human consciousness for now in 2022? This unknown force that is reincarnating as civilizations. It's like there's, what's funny? It's kind of like every species has a spirit. And a spirit, let's say like a molecule being a bunch of atoms, let's say a spirit is a bunch of souls. Okay? And so the spirit of humanity, the spirit of what is the value of being this biological, kind of playful, silly creature, right? We're that part of nature that was like, I want to feel what it is to exist. It's as if the world was happening before the human brain had a voice on this earth. So the mysteries of reality surpass the human ideal. And the best strategy the human species has in wondering about really what truth means is to fearlessly exploring all the dimensions it has. You see, it's the context of emergency that evokes power. Imagine like somebody wanted to inspire themselves to advance civilization, and they're like, okay, let me host the problem. Let me project a problem. Present a problem. Let's say that in a time period of 200 years, or let's give it 400 years. Let's give it 200 years. Let's say in a period of 200 years, there's going to be, let's say, an extraterrestrial alien invasion on Earth, and this extraterrestrial invasion is not physical. It's like an inner realm invasion. It would be, in some sense, like the extraterrestrials try to invade our souls, right, through our minds. It would be something like on that level. So I thought about, okay, let's say we had 200 years to advance, to train a species to have such inner realm mental clarity that it would in some sense be capable of defending itself with colossal problems. You see, the thing about honor, let's say you're a human being and you're like, what do I do with honor? I'm alive once. What is the value? Where does the attention lead? Honor is the fearlessness to see an absolute moment. if we had to prepare our species from a mental invasion, it would be another way of saying human beings, just like how confident, just like how they instantly feel they are their bodies, they must have the same feeling when it comes to their minds. You see, what is enlightenment in a changing world is that the moment that has the most clarity gets the most advancement. What human beings are looking for deep down, I mean, it's a bunch of factors, but the biggest one is acknowledgement. You know, for me, I'm good at acknowledging, let's say collective ideas, but when it comes to individual ideas, I have, let's say, the ignorance of my own hidden world. What I'm trying to say is that truth is pretty much can be said in 2 sentences. Truth is how existence is experiencing experience is existing. Literally, it's all about the starting point. I want to see an advanced civilization. This is Mr. Within's vision of an advanced civilization, where human beings, they have discovered incredible technologies as a retaliation to what nothing means. People think nothing is nothing. It's like there's going to be so many books written on nothing, Nothing with a capital N. The sky witnesses mankind's great performance. The world is watching itself in the same way that a self knows it's being a self. On some level, we can say that human consciousness is biological until it reaches the edge of its desire. At some point, we stop progress and just become an ocean of knowing, or we keep the river flowing of individualism. You see, it's very clear the human species has a very important crossroad ahead of it. People don't realize it now. It's like I'm saying something that if a time traveler existed would say, would kind of be like nodding its head. Imagine somebody had an experience like with their future self coming back in time and talking to them, and the future self just comes back in time, silently smiles and shows a thumbs up and leaves, It's like, what did your future self say? Nothing. It gave me a thumbs up, I'm just saying, like, the decision to be a human being is an energetic effort that is being piloted by attention. Every human being, after they have, let's say in a manner of speech, as they have lived and experienced their outer realms, at some point they will become acquainted with their inner realms and how their mind has been moving their body. Just like human beings look at like squirrels and birds, and like human beings wonder, it's like, wait a minute, if I have a soul, does that bird flying in the sky have a soul? And so really the continuity of the human mind, it's like a limited fantasy. the future, I'll give it like probably, let's say, in 1,000 years. Even though we will have biological human bodies, we will not. The idea of the human will become meaningless. The experience will expand beyond human nature. So that's a phase of humanity. But at the same time, it depends. Like I'm saying, let's imagine the best case scenario, and let's apply infinity to the best case scenario. Let's say we wanted to build an advanced civilization, and now we wanted to build a civilization so advanced that it would advance to the in the whole cosmos, like beyond a Kardashev scale, Kardashev scale based types 6 beyond civilization. What I'm trying to tell you is that civilizations, they are a process of change, but they're a process of organized change. If the speed of change accelerates to a point, imagine a civilization is advancing so fast that at some point it advances be faster than the space of light, like the speed of light. Right, so an incredibly advanced civilization is so capable visibly that it's actually invisible. Do you know? It's pretty much there's in every moment there is something that's just animating. That's poetically like the soul's vision. Truth has a personality in the inner realms based on what it thinks it is in the outer realms. Like if right now, let's say tomorrow we woke up and everybody had like blue skin color, you know, like that's an extreme example what I'm saying. Like imagine everybody suddenly had green like skin color, right? And the sky was like purple sky color, you know. Do you know what I'm saying? It would be something where we'd all have to acknowledge it, you know? Really what it is to be a human being is not just a physiological opportunity, it's a psychological opportunity. To be a human being means like a mind can move the world, can move in the world, can move the world as itself. You know, there's times like, let's say the spiritual person might be like, man, I have so many past lives, you know. And imagine another spiritual person's like, man, I'm actually timeless. Another spiritual person says, I'm extraterrestrial. Imagine, like, do you see there's so many ways beyond the human, that to be a human being is like to be in an airport of a certain biological geometry. We are like a natural being that its consciousness has allowed it to be aware of the unnatural. That means to me what is more fascinating is how the human being could have ever made a mistake. You see, it's the expectation of the mind. The mind is like, where Achilles is like aiming his spear when he throws it. Like it's like the precision of the moment. There's this story of Arjuna, this legendary archer in Indian mythology, and he's in this archery school, and someone before him, the archery instructor, he's put like a clay bird on the branch of a tree, and he's telling the students to hit it. One student comes and tries to hit it, and he fails, and then the instructor shouts, when you see that, when you aim, what do you see? You see, like the instructor's asking the archer, in some sense, before you aim, what do you see? And the guy says, I see the tree, I see the leaves, I see the space between, I see all the different things I can aim my bow at, aim the arrow at. And so, but the guy fails, and the instructor says, all right, Arjuna, it's your turn, right? And now Arjuna takes his arrow, and with his first strike, hits the clay bird. And the instructor says, Arjuna, when you aim, what do you see? And Arjuna says, when I aim, I only see the clay bird. I don't see anything else. And really what the advancement of civilization is kind of like the 2022 has decided to, in the inner realms, in the linguistic simulation, raise an arrow, it's like it's like poetically Mr. Within is like the archetype of this archer, that aimed the species towards an advanced civilization. It's a destination, right? Really, when I give these Mr. Within talks, I'll tell people how I kind of go about it. The title is the ending of the talk, the beginning of the talk, and the middle of the talk. It's as if humanity must aim its attention for the first time to an emergency requirement of greatness. Imagine everybody was panicking, right? And we're like, why is everybody panicking? It's because they're going to experience their greatness in an instant. They're just getting ready. For me, it's the activation of the DNA's potential. We should treat people as unknown conscious agents moving in the realm. Like there is no such thing as sanity and insanity, because everybody has a different DNA. Everybody is receiving their own version of the world. Really what it is it's kind of like every person is, let's say there's one physical world, okay? And on this physical world there's a bunch of beings, and let's say the pieces, the chess pieces on a chessboard suddenly realized, like the chessboard. Now the chess pieces are wondering, what is moving me, right? And what is moving the chess pieces, or poetically how the unknown soul moves the mysterious mind. You see, something that could be said about the mind is that the mind is not divine, but it is mysterious. It's as if from a mysterious state of consciousness, from the neutrality where chaos and order were born. What is the soul of the moment other than the greatest vision activating energy? That's it. Really what it has been, it's kind of like the body needs to survive like an animal, hilariously, but the mind needs to survive through efficiency. What is efficiency? It is, in some sense, comparing value systems. Comparing it's like when you realize everything is a type of information. What knowledge becomes is what data sets can be accessible in the moment. A person can have the psychology where they have a relationship poetically with their own soul or their intuition. They could choose to live an intuitive life, right? And that intuitive life could constantly be centered not around the idea of the known discovering the unknown, but the unknown being the known for the first time, right? It's as if it's a pancake flip of the archetype of the human being. We started saying we were not great, so for the future's like, all right, we got to be great in the future, but it's like at the same time, imagine a reality where humanity was always great, humanity was always advanced, and the ignorance had been to forget the power of nature is to extend on natural branches and dimensions. You see, it's an appreciation of nature, not on a physical level only, but an appreciation of nature in accordance to how physical reality is being contained to have meaning. A majority of what a person is kind of like it's like there's films in the mind, and the body is just existing here chilling, and consciousness is just present. Really, it's like, what does it mean to be alive, to be somewhere? That's what it means, to be in a world. Now we wonder about the meaning of the self in the world, and the self is starting for now like with the human idea. Okay. So we have built civilization by attaching an idea to the shape of a biological entity, and in some sense it's as if our species did something genius, and in order to understand the world, it simulated a world of its own. It's kind of like we created abstraction to understand truth. We created imagination so we can understand reality. What is knowledge? What is any energetic effort in the space-time continuum? It's an addition. It's like adding. It's like whatever way the person moves, it's like they're adding geometrical patterns to space. Like me giving this talk, it's as if something, it's like a rhythm of one dimension being expressed into another. But in reality, what is experiencing everything? It depends on its shape. That means if the person thinks they're weak, right, they're going to try to be strong their whole life. If a person thinks they're strong, they're not going to even think about weakness. You see, so if we want to be like, okay, we want to build an advanced civilization, we must be advanced from the beginning. It's like, think of it this way. It's like we have to solve the puzzle of how to become advanced beings to then have advanced beings build the advanced civilization. And what is a being? We can say a being is a set of relationships. It's a set of relationships that have basis in multiple dimensions. So right now, in this moment, when I as a being, as a conscious human being, say I know this moment, what is knowing what? In some sense, it's kind of like attention is being in the same way the energy that can't be created and destroyed is being. Really, it's in what way language painted the portal of the mind. Do you know the mind is a door? People don't realize it. And to be a conscious being, the inner realms are an energetic opportunity. To be conscious, it's as if we evolved 4.5 billion years just to be able to notice our suffering. No, to use what is inefficient to realize its contrast is efficiency. You see, it's kind of like, how do we build an advanced civilization? Civilization is the attention of the creatures on it, the human beings living in it. So it's the attention of the human beings that suggests how advanced civilization is. And our species has had a fear of going beyond the human idea. Right? Like, at least back in the day, in ancient times, the world had mystery. But now, anything that doesn't fit into the human idea, it's as if the species is overreacting to how the world is more unknown than known. By projecting the ideals of normality or not. You know what it is? What culture is behavioral membership. It's ideological behavioral membership. It's literally like an airport terminal. It's as if like there's a language which is like you can open up a book and read, and then there's a language of just how human experience. How would I say it? It's like it's the silent language of how existence moves forward. it's like to wonder about truth is to try to solve the greatest problem. You know, imagine the human being had unlimited energy and they're like, okay, I'm tired, but what can I do? And they look at the world and realize when it comes to the inner realms, when it comes to what the world means, we are using the geometry of subtler dimensions. So the nature of the mind, it opens up in accordance to what you consider it to be. Right? So if the person considers the mind to be empty, reality is ultimately authorized in accordance to its emptiness. Right? So if the nature of the mind is singular, so imagine like the mind had settings and you're changing the mode of your mind. In one mode, your mind is not considering that you're an existential creature, it's just being like emptiness is being emptiness. Nothing doesn't change. You know, when you realize the void, then you become comfortable with silence. You know, it's like death to some degree to, let's say, the advanced mind is in some sense how nature lives through its moments. It's okay, let me go back to this, that the one mode of the mind is the void, and let's give it the number 0. Another mode of the mind is the singular. So imagine the person opened their eyes and they're like, wait a minute, I'm not a person in the world, I'm everything happening at once, yay. So imagine you suddenly experience a moment where in your stillness everything is just being everything at once. People don't realize that awareness to existence is the spiritual experience. If we measure truth in accordance to existence, the truth of existence is infinity. That means the ultimate belief is to believe that you're an infinite being. Now, the experience of truth has to do with how unknown awareness engages the known matter, the known shape. It's as if the person's like, okay, if I want to truly take a scientific approach to reality, I must take a true approach in acknowledging what I am seeing in reality. So, very simply, all human beings, the nature of human sight is that we get access to space, we get access to color, we get access to geometry, and we get access to have an ability as a geometrical shape. Excuse me. Kind of like, let me say it this way, it's like how we are aware that we have a shape doesn't have a shape. So to truly wonder about if truth has a personality, as long as there's a person looking for truth, truth can have a personality. But if the original idea, it's like the one who's seeking truth, it's as if what is truth? We're just attention in an unknown world. Really, the meaning of life is explore everything, kind of like a species stranded on a galactic island. Human beings are guided by their visions. Everybody is like envisioning a world that's happening. In order to utilize this idea that truth can potentially not have a personality, it's kind of like we're saying, what do we do as a creature that is identifying by its shape, but realizing there's states where it's shapelessly being the moment? Like right now, just like how my body is existing, my consciousness is experiencing. It's like, what is my consciousness? The awareness to my body. And what is the awareness to my body? The value my consciousness gives it. On some level we can say every human being is playing a game. Like they're playing a game that only they can see, and they're playing a game that everybody can see, the world can see. What it means is we're multidimensional beings. It's like, if you were religious, it would be like, how can a multidimensional being believe in God? How can a singular truth be anything else other than a singular truth? It's like, to be a religious person is another way of saying the world is God. The whole world is God's will. It's like giving the steering wheel to the invisible, to the inconceivable. But in reality, in an advanced civilization, an advanced civilization is like a civilization so advanced that it never had to restrict anything, and what it really intended. Like what advancement means is that an ability that can experience all possibilities. I think anybody who masters like an infinite dimension, a dualistic dimension, a singular dimension, and the void, the dimension of the void, like when a person can be content with these four factors, which are qualities to any moment. Our mind is here to expand. It's as if the brain takes a photograph of the world, and like its personality has something to do. Do you know? Like we right now are all acting like we're just physical creatures, but our language is non-physical. Understanding is non-physical. When we remember things, it's non-physical. When we have dreams, it's non-physical. So much of reality is non-physically happening, but we as a species are not acknowledging it. Advanced civilization fearlessly will try to chart all uncharted territory, because what is understanding? To see as many angles to something as there is possible. Do you know what that means? An advanced civilization is another way of saying the species made so many smart decisions that it deserved what it was becoming. There is a collective life, which it also goes beyond human personality. In the future, like psychologists can look at a human behavior, and the concept of sanity and insanity are archaic. Imagine that shit becomes old school, and now we're like, okay, there's a consciousness moving through a biological framework on the planet. To what degree does the consciousness choose to be human and choose to be dehumanized? And in the future, they will not have fear of the dehumanized, because that's the whole point of AI. Like, the destiny of AI is to kind of replace how the dog was man's best friend. Technology is going to become a part of our lives, which is going to be encapsulated in our second nature. So think of this, that cyberspace is going to be our third nature, the third dimension of our nature, poetically. It's as if, consciousness in the simplest definition is attention to existence. And then what this attention to existence does is, like, the soul can be considered the movement of the soul. There is a hidden wisdom. Let me tell you what I think. This is a very abstract Mr.Within theory, but I gave a talk on it, Ghost of Civilizations Past. And I was saying how, just like civilizations rise and fall, if there was a dimension, whether similar to Plato's world of forms, like a purely geometrical dimension, or a dimension where the mind never died, like the body died, but what the body was doing while it had a mind, it created something that could imagine never die, right? But could, in some sense, poetically reincarnate, right? I'm saying, like, the way we treat ourselves is the depth of how far we have actually perceived reality. There is a whole inner workings of reality going on. Do you know, it's as if the human species is the story we tell when we look in front of our eyes. But when we look behind our eyes, we are unknown spaces of intelligent activity. So in some sense, all conscious animal life is sacred. To be honest, in the future, we should stop eating animals. We should stop having anything to do with animals other than ourselves, and somehow, replace steaks with, like, I don't know, sophisticated food nanotechnology. I don't know, like like some next level genius engineering of food creation. I don't know how to say it. Like, but I'm saying, at some point, anything that has will, that demonstrates it can decide, must not be killed. Right? And the whole idea is we lived so well that all the other species automatically align to our energy levels. That means I honestly have this vision that if 8 billion human beings suddenly decided to build an advanced civilization, all the other species on the planet would suddenly, like, imagine they were all free, they would suddenly just take a couple steps back and watch the advanced humanity build the advanced civilization. It's such a divine idea for me, the concept of an advanced civilization. It's like, that's the truth my mind is looking for. And that truth surpasses personality. It's as if the person's like, man, I thought I was a big deal, but it's as if, like, I'm just this, small moment of time compared to a universe that has existed and is existing timelessly. It's as if to be a human being is to glance at eternity. We think eternity is in some magical dimension, but what eternity is the awareness to existence. Existence is like the proof that something is eternally happening. Existence is the proof of God. Because why space needed to have a personality is the most bizarre question. Like, they should create something, as called in, like, let's say, spooky science, right? And spooky science is where the discovery or scientific advancement, the engineering is being focused in a level where its consideration for the human archetype is, like, being tested. You see, right now, 8 billion human beings. If suddenly 8 billion human beings live unnaturally, we would become robots in the future. Consciousness would somehow echo through technology into the infinite journey of intelligence, But if we realize we are 8 billion bees building a beehive, it's as if, like, think of it this way, it would be like if 8 billion eternal beings wanted to redesign eternity. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, the story we tell ourselves moves our life. If the story starts off from, let's say, the axis of the origin of the human idea, everything has to be human or the human species freaks out. But if we have this realization that instead of having two dimensions of just body and mind, we entertain that, okay, there's some force in the moment in every human being's life. There's this force which is the presence of life. Okay, I think this is the best way to say it. It's like the presence of life is here. Now, the presence of life that has wondered about its constitution, it's as if the person did not just notice geometry, the person noticed that they were being a geometrical animation in the realm. Do you know? It's like the world is too easily being here. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, because we're born in the world, like scholars say, there's two worlds. There's the world that was here before your birth and is going to be here after your death, and the world that was just the world where your eyes opened. It's like to be alive as a human being is to live for the greatest vision of the human being. For me, I'm like, let's for a second put the concept of believing in an ideological truth aside and have everybody stare at the unknown. This is true intellectual courage, right? To realize that the unknown was in the room first. The world is a series of dimensions. The human experiences, think of it as one of these dimensions. So ultimately, truth, it's how much the human idea can apply to it is really what values the human idea. That means for now, human truth is accessible by the human being. It's so remarkable, just like there's like in the jungle, let's say, creatures of different levels of intensity. There's so many, like there's the gazelle and there's the lion. When I look at reality, I also see dimensions in the same way. There are lesser dimensions, greater dimensions. The minds are projecting fields of influence. It's like when two people talk, it's as if like two spheres, two orbs of life intersecting. My honest opinion is that truth can have a personality. That's it. It doesn't have to be a personality. It doesn't have personality. It just can have personality. That means intelligence can choose to, through a singular existence and dualistic experience, journey into the infinite. It's like this way where human beings, maybe they can't succeed till the end of time, but they can succeed if they become infinity. We take the spirit of the world and we allow the eyes of the realm to expand as far as it can. The purpose of knowledge is the discovery of new skies, the discovery of new. It's like every human being's mind is being like a unique version of the world. An advanced civilization would be providing an incredible inner life. It's a decision of collective victory. Anybody who somehow their imagination has allowed them to envision some sort of collective victory of the human species. The purpose of the body is to build an advanced civilization. The purpose of the mind is to use the most advanced technology accessible, which is communication. We are at that time of history before cyberspace and information teleportation becomes so second nature that it's like, there may be a future where people no longer speak, like the ears, the mouth, even to be a body becomes obsolete because consciousness identified with the process of information. It's just remarkable. What the sky is hiding is how our mind is being the whole moment. You see that free will sure, somebody, let's say, doesn't believe in God, but anything that moves the world, it can be considered as God. So when a person wonders about what is moving the world for a human being, right, the person conceptually sees the limitations of the human being, but contextually sees the infinite possibilities of the human being. And what it is to be a shape that has never been seen before. This is the ideal of advancement. It's as if we cared for humanity's future in such a way that we decided not to fear destiny. You see, that's the power of the advanced civilization. It's like poetically, imagine there was a hidden archangel called the Archangel of Advancement. It's like the soul of anything that advances in any world. It's like the same spirit. It's like the individual soul has access to God's mind on earth. It's another way of saying, where is attention starting from? If it needs to start from an ideological position, it's just the person's preference, right? It's as if they ask a person, what kind of truth do you prefer? Imagine in the future, somebody goes into this temple of advanced communication, and the person gives them a menu, and they're like, what sort of truth do you want to order, right? I'm just hilariously saying that the nature of the human mind is to use intelligence as a sort of model. What our brains are doing is that they are revealing themselves in some sense as the force that moves the moment. The mystery of consciousness is so bizarre that if a person closes their eyes and imagines something, it's as if light is not entering your eyes, but you can still see. I think there's hilariously a dark side of psychology which is dehumanized. Just like, think of it this way, just like in what was it, like Harry Potter or something, there was like this idea of forbidden magic, right? And so imagine as 8 billion human beings, their minds simulating reality and their decisions in some sense shaping the future, It's as if what is the forbidden in a world where truth is waiting for itself, you know? Imagine someone says, I'm being truth right now. Like, how can we know they're not being truth, you know? It's a perspective. The mystery of humanity is not what the senses revealed, but how the greatest revelation is how the attention in the moment moves. Like, on some level, it's like the body's a biological entity moving in the space-time continuum, but the mind is like this unknown viewer that can jump from one world simulation to another instantly. So what the mind is the realization of poetically how an unknown soul is moving a known body. The mind is pretty much how the unknown moves the known, and it's like every person's perception is divided between known variables and unknown variables. If somebody experiences life and has too many unknown things happen, at some point they realize they have to confront the unknown, so that means instantly they have to make a choice about what the importance of knowledge, you know. You know, all of my philosophies emerge from this idea of what does the human species deserve. When I honestly think about what our species deserves, I just think about what's the greatest thing it can deserve. And in some sense, how can it deserve it, right? It's kind of like, what's the greatest vision and how can it happen? And just this view of wondering about what the concept of greatness means, I've realized greatness is a vision. That means it's an ability to take responsibility in wondering about the future, right? So in educational systems, they're just teaching the past. But imagine there was a classroom where a teacher was teaching the future. That means really, on some level, we're all students of an unknown world. But better word would be explorers. I'm just trying to get human beings to wonder about how their mind is being their world, and to discover a new space of freedom. To realize responsibility means, what have you trusted in this realm, you know? If the world is seen as an inefficient place, there's an argument to distrust it. But if the world is the only stage, that means every day happens once, so where did the eyes go? What was the top of the sight hierarchy, you know? Out of all the things we could see in this world happen, what would be the greatest thing that could happen for the human being? And that's a problem that every human being should be solving. You know, it's like, who knew who the earth was turning for? Was a temporary being. existence is like this eternal film. This film that never stops playing, and it's as if we step out of the cinema of existence. At some point in life, energy just remembers itself, We have to build an advanced civilization that has the best strategy for the body, best strategy for the mind, and the best strategy for the spirit of mankind, which is another way of saying, in the most ultimate benevolent perspective, what would be the most genius, like what would genius benevolence look like? What would the genius of benevolence look like? Benevolence is another way of saying, like compassion. People think it's like, old monks just being compassionate. But what compassion is the allowance of life to happen, right? But at the same time, life is multidimensionally happening, and so it's as if when we wonder about what is the most like advanced way the human mind can happen, it's as if with an understanding of all individual dimensions of life, it's as if we update the ability of a species to recategorize, and in some sense we usher everybody into an era of next level storytelling, where the story has become the story of our lives, right? It's so remarkable. It's like the most evil person and the most good person, let's say the most chaotic being and the most ordered being, they both have something in common. That there is a vision of a moment, It's as if consciousness is neither good or evil, so it can watch how they're happening, Beyond duality, which is the philosophical context that preserves the idea of the human being. Dehumanized states can be void, dehumanized states can be singular, oneness is a dehumanized state, right? Dehumanized states can be also infinite. But also there can be the infinite, how could I say it? It's like there's a potential to the human archetype that is dependent on what it is considered to be important in the world. I thought about, is it much cooler to say the story to oneself that we are an unknown attention in an unknown world, and the energy that is present in the moment has a sort of expression as the physical experiential life. So it's as if the person realizing how they are aware their mind is moving their body is like how their soul is being their whole moment. It's like we reach an ultimate simplicity, and so it's as if truth is simple, like complexity is like artificial to some degree, right? It's as if who knew truth simulated the illusion. Truth simulated the simulation. That means in every moment of being, something has to be in a true way for intelligence to happen at all. That means underneath all the ideology that masks the potential of this attention we are, it's as if when we become the pilots of consciousness, we become the worlds our soul enters, So it's on some deep level, it's like presence of attention, it's like the person's trying to cultivate a new way where their attention is free from the context of its definitions. It's as if we don't realize it, but what world peace is like a battle for how long human ability stays dormant. We are to be a human being in 2022 is to be like a genius in the void. The opportunity of human life, it's just so fascinating how many different pilots, how many human beings are behind their eyes, like living in worlds that only they can see. 2022 was the era where humanity still had to have hidden realities. It's like to seek the ultimate is to not realize we're being the ultimate. Novelty is the ultimatum of the past. Our ancestors lived for us, and it's as if we are indirectly living for a future that would be way better. Like, why not? Sometimes I wonder, like, man, should the human species build an advanced civilization? And then at the same time, like, why not though? Why not the most advanced civilization? Why not have, like, access to, like, Jarvis technology from the Iron Man series, and at the same time having access and being in nature, Nature is like our connection to why the planet has a value. The idea of freedom is bizarre as well. The idea of freedom. Freedom from what? It's as if what can consciousness free itself from? Earlier I said this quote from Papaji where he says, "You are the unchanging awareness where all activity is taking place." Our eyes are being the world, and on some level we're acting like we haven't noticed that. It's like the attention simulates reality. The purpose of the brain is to interpret information in a new way. Survival was just finding an efficient novel connection. Imagine somebody went to like this futuristic guru, and they're like, "Futuristic guru, how can I get enlightened?" And the futuristic guru was like, "Yeah, you just have to find a new vision." And a new vision means new eyes. That means it's like there's a way our biological eyes are looking at reality, and there's a way how our mind is setting the context of what the world means before we move in it. It's like what meditation is really like to observe how the nature of the mind, how your mind is being the moment on a core level, a spectrum of possibilities occur. Right? That means it's like the person has closed his eyes, he's just sitting in the moment, and he suddenly realizes behind his eyes the context and the shape of what sort of ideological landscapes present itself. It's like what meaning is how a creature is looking at the world. Right? What truth is what is looking at the world. And and on a very deep core level, energy doesn't have a personality. People don't look at like the atoms and say, "Wow, what a cute atom." Nobody says that. So it's as if even in mathematics, science, these are also dehumanized states. Geometry is a hard argument to make. It's like, because on some level we are being pure geometry, right? And like the pure geometry in existence, and at the same time we're being a simulation of an ideology in the moment. It's as if really communication is like an inner rhythm expressing in the outer world. So I'm saying that we are human because there is a human body because the human body is named, which means the human body exists as an idea to itself. Now the consideration is, okay, where does this idea want to be pointed at? And it's like the depth of the challenge we accept about conceptual reality. It's like, how deeply do we want to look at life where we have noticed where the edge of the concept of the world is? And the edge of the concept of the world is a realization that what we see as the world is actually an inner event. It's like how the brain is happening is being the sight that is overlaid in the moment, If consciousness is a viewer of the world, it's like our attention is aware of what it sees. It's literally like an invisible mind is visibly realizing. It's as if beyond, when it goes to the mystery of space, not the matter in space, it's like dehumanized, It's as if truth can be a dehumanized state of being. But because we're in the position of human beings, like an advanced civilization is the ultimate victory. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. Rise, mankind, rise.